is Jon McLamb, and why do we care?
Well, and I'm going to tell you, I guess I'll answer that question from a standpoint of tennis and Court Harbor, because I could go in a lot of different directions with who's Jon McLamb. So Jon McLamb, so native North Carolinian, grew up in this area and grew up playing junior tennis in North Carolina, way back. I used to say a few years, now it's like a few decades ago. So, in the 80s, mainly in North Carolina, played college tennis at East Carolina and came back to Winston-Salem, which is the area I grew up in, and came back and was assistant tennis pro at Forsyth Country Club. That was my first job out of college, actually my internship. And I played college tennis at ECU. I kind of skipped over that, but really good years at ECU, great relationships there. Had a career in tennis for a good while on the teaching side. So I was, as I said, at Forsyth Country Club and then at Bent Tree Country Club in Dallas. And then got on the sales side and moved away for 13 years from North Carolina, and then met my wife in Atlanta. I was in Atlanta for 8 years and met Carrie, who is from, she's not from North Carolina. She's from New England. It's from Massachusetts, but we met in Atlanta and moved here in 2008 and thought of this idea, Court Harbor and court dividers along the way. And I'm sure we'll get to that, but that's a little bit about me.
Nice. And there's an Atlanta connection there, of course, which is always good. I also see Georgia State. Was that education or was that, it looks like development? What were you doing in Georgia State?
Yeah, so I spent a good amount of my career in athletic administration on the college side. And my first job on the college athletics side in that segment, in that industry, was with ISP Sports, which, sold to IMG, became IMG College, and now they're Learfield. And so on the multimedia rights side. And so that's the job that brought me to Atlanta. So I was doing corporate sponsorships for Georgia Tech through ISP Sports. And so I was, at one point in my life, it was a desire to be a Division I athletic director. That was my career path. And so that took me a couple of different jobs along the way, because I eventually got on the school side and went to an opportunity came up at Georgia State. And so that position was, I was associate athletic director for development and marketing. And it was around the time that we started football there. So had a chance to work with Dan Reeves, former Falcons coach and Broncos coach and Giants coach, and great experience there. And worked with Mary McElroy, and it was the athletic director there at the time. And a lot of great folks at Georgia State, and led the fundraising efforts there, and what eventually led to the football program starting. So, yeah, it was it was a few of my years there, but 8 really good years in Atlanta.
Nice. And I ask because we always look for an Atlanta connection, which is good, but also about that same time frame, you were at Georgia State. I was my end of my time at TPC Sugarloaf, and then on at Berkeley Hills Country Club. So, and Bobby's been in the area as director of tennis for who knows how long now. And we're
I'm glad Jon didn't call me for some money. I'm surprised.
I was gonna say.
I'm an alumni. I have my master's from Georgia State. So
yeah,
I don't know how I wasn't on that list, but I'm happy.
Well, we missed a golden opportunity, right?
No, I'm pretty sure Bobby is avoiding that list. I think that's the direction Bobby was going. But the interesting part about it is we're tennis guys. We get the industry, we get the business. We've all been teaching pros, if not still are, and you end up leaving teaching, getting into the business side, getting into that more running and administering side, where Bobby's in kind of both. And I'm interested in Court Harbor, that inception time frame, because tennis coaches are notorious for having great ideas in their own mind, right? We've all got this genius concept. I had this idea about 10, 12 years ago, and it was a watch that was going to have multiple alarms. Every tennis coach was going to want one because you need an alarm to finish your serving time, an alarm to pick up balls and get ready for the next thing, and multiple alarms. And as soon as I thought about I was like, this is going to be great. It's going to change the world. And then, Apple comes out, they're like, hey, we got a smartwatch. I'm like, all right, glad I didn't dump my first $1 million investor dollars there. So how do you get into Court Harbor and also make it successful? I'd like to go from inception to get us to that it actually works and it isn't just one of those crazy tennis pro ideas that fizzles out and doesn't become anything.
Yeah, so I'm sitting here thinking as I'm going to answer that, I'm thinking, man, I wish there was a short answer to that question.
Right, because there's no secret, right?
Yeah, but to try to give you the best snapshot version of answering that, I was a coach, to your point, Shaun. I was coaching at Agnes Scott College in Decatur at the time, and I was coaching there, coaching tennis, coaching cross country, was assistant AD with Jolene Aiken was the AD there, and we all wore a lot of hats, administratively and on the court. And I was on the court one day at practice, and there were literally, and I'll always remember this because this was certainly, without question, a light bulb moment. We were on the court with the players, and we're doing drills just like any team would be. And I looked and I saw about 12, 15 balls on one court and 12 or 15 balls on the next court, and nothing in the middle. And I just thought to myself right then, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be something more than just fence and nothing at all that keeps it. And so, as my wife would tell you, I walked around Lowe's and Home Depot for probably the next few years thinking, how am I going to build this thing? Not quite, but it probably seemed like it to her. But I just kind of kept that concept in my mind, but I didn't think a ton of it at the time because I've kind of always been a fairly creative person, and just kind of how I'm wired and what keeps me going and excited. And I have plenty of ideas. My closest friends and my wife may say they're not all great ideas, but I've got plenty of them. But I had that version. I saw the need for that. It went on that day, and I just did kind of carry it in my mind. But as I went through and I was doing life and going through, work and stuff, I just said, I think maybe I can do something with this. And so I just kind of started tinkering around and, contacting some potential suppliers and designers and things like that. And that's how it started. But it took literally some years to get things in motion, and then did it as, I was still working. It wasn't my day job, and just kind of worked on it in the evenings and 4 a.m. in the morning, those weekends, those kind of things, just like most, if not all, entrepreneurs. And then one thing led to another, and the biggest kind of breaking kind of crossroads was we had started to have enough success. I brought on a couple guys, had some equity at the time. That's no longer the case, but brought on a couple guys initially to, kind of seek this dream, this vision with me. And we started to have enough success. I mean, we started to have some success. We went through the patent process with the divider idea. We didn't get the patent approved and receive the patent until we were in business for 2 or 3 years. It was patent pending, but we now have had that since 2017. But I gradually worked my way up. But I guess like a lot of people, I did come to that place where, okay, I've got a good paying job I'm happy with. I got a wife and 2 young boys at home, and there's lots of reasons to stay in this lane. But I just thought to myself, I think this can be something. And it got to a point where I felt like I really needed to make a decision to be fair to everybody. Am I going to pursue this and really go for it, or am I not? And I decided that if I didn't, I'd probably have regrets. And if it failed, at least I tried, and, rationalized all those good things and justified it, and eventually went for it in 2015, where, went all in full time and pursued it.
I love it. It reminds me of my father, who came to me in I'd say it was the late 80s. I was a kid. We were on a flight going to Germany. And he's looking at me. He's like, son, one day, and I'm a computer guy, son. One day, all we're going to do, it's only going to be about this big. He shows me his thumb, right? It's only be about this big, and it's just going to be a little drive. We stick it in and we can take it out, and it's going to just be really easy. And we're going to store data on this little portable thing. And I'm like, Dad, I'm trying to sleep. This This is awful. Why are you talking to me about your brilliant ideas that are never going to do anything? I bring that up because he was the type to say, I've got a wife, kids, good job. I'm not messing that up. I'm not going to take that chance. And there were a couple different times he had an idea that later became a thing. You know, clearly I didn't invent the Apple Watch, but I did see a need for it. And it's cool to find the need and be able to provide it. And I know Bobby's been talking about what you've been doing a long time, because I think Bobby and I usually just stick out a tube or something, you know, from the edge of the fence to try to keep a few balls from going side to side. But Bobby's talked about what you do a lot, and I want to kind of hand it to him because I know he's probably got 1,000 questions for you at this point.
Well, no, because it's fun. And I think, John, tell me I'm wrong. You also worked for Billy Oaks, right?
Well, not directly, but we, Bill and I had some, I guess where we crossed paths was the earliest days of Court Harbor when I left Wake Forest. And at the time I was overseeing the fundraising for the law school at Wake, even though I'd spent most of my career on the athletic side. The first couple of years of Court Harbor, as far as, it's rolling our products and taking things to really becoming a company. That's when Bill, in the early years, right in the thick of when he was the tournament director for Winston-Salem Open. And so, yeah, there was some connection there. And, Winston-Salem is my hometown, grew up in Midway, south of Winston. So, yeah, so no Bill from those times.
I'm just trying to develop that further Atlanta connection, Shaun, because Billy used to be the tournament director here when it was the AT&T Open, and he headed the ProServe office here in Atlanta back when I was just moving in. So I met Billy early on, and still in contact with him all these years later, which is fun. And it's always good to see the guys that you knew, and through that, obviously, meeting you, and we got to meet, as we were trying to figure out before, probably between 8 to 10. We have a timeline when you had just started developing Court Harbor, and I was a big fan from, I think, wanted to just solidify the idea of all tennis pros having too many ideas. I tried to encourage John to become an ad agency and put ads on them when you sold them to people. Like, just give them the ads, for God's sakes. And, but I understand that's a whole different, business model. But, I saw the value in it, and I'm, like I said, I'm excited that it is going. But and just talk to this, because this is the funny part about all these things. We have ideas, the intricacies of developing, like you said, we're going around looking at the parts. How did you decide on this was the model, that this was going to be the most functional, that we were going to be able to do the most with?
Yeah, so the very first prototype I had produced was out of a plastics group in Greenville, South Carolina. And it was literally like a horseshoe type like a bend in it. And, it's funny how well you remember. I remember those earliest days, just having that prototype, and just seeing how much it's changed now. But it started with just literally that. And the earliest court dividers for the prototypes were PVC pipe, and a nice kind of mesh covering that went over it. And at the time, in its earliest version, the divider, and going back to the kind of that light bulb moment, it was really just functional. It was just a partition to stop tennis balls from, not the curtain that goes the full length of the court, but those annoying tennis balls that roll on the back fence that would normally go into the adjacent court. And so it was just that idea. And then as we're going through the patent process, going through that application, and as you may know, that's a very involved process. But as we were going through that and, trying to describe it the best we could, there was like another, the guy who was, representing us on the legal side from the patent, and guy that was an early partner. We came to the realization, it was like, man, not only is this thing functional, but it's an on-court billboard, and so, and we've seen that play out. And so we're starting to see, it's funny you say that, Bobby, because we are starting to get more and more ad agencies contacting us to get the net signs and different things, and it could be court dividers. we've had quite a few of those, and it seems like an increasing number, getting them for events. But after I kind of got out of my own head, which probably maybe took longer than it should, I said, I need to really get with a designer that does this for a living. And we sat down, and a guy named Brad Forrest, Ideal Logic, in Durham, North Carolina, sat down and went through the design, and took his time and as he needed to, and really came up with the best design, which is what we have today, our patented tennis court dividers. And so that's how it kind of evolved from there. And we've made some slight adjustments. So we offer two covers now, the slip covers that go over the dividers. The divider itself is like a picture frame. The uprights snap down into the base, and a horizontal snaps across the vertical columns. And then the slip cover goes down over that. And that's where the clubs or the school, colleges, high schools, put their logo on it. And we've added a mesh cover that's a second option if people prefer that look and the functionality of it. So we try to make those adjustments and just make the product as good as it can be, and continue to do that, whether it's with the dividers or the signs, scorekeepers, as we go.
So we're in tennis, and we know how frustrating that can be. You have an idea, you start taking it to clubs. Obviously, you're in tennis. I was a big fan right away. You see the need. There's an obvious need. How, what was the process, the patience process of, educating, convincing? And then again, the hard part about tennis, everybody thinks because of the demographic, there's lots of money, but tennis is usually the last one to get suspended. Golf spends sooner, so what was the process? What did you find? What were the frustrations initially? How long did it take to start to see the wheels really starting to go in your favor?
Yeah, I think it took probably, keep in mind, we had a couple sales rep before I even came on full time, and was working with, a couple of my part owners along with me, and trying to do it when we could. So keep in mind, that was the first maybe 2 years roughly. And then when I came on full time, let's say probably another good couple years, before we really started to see some traction, where we saw, we had a good response from college tennis programs pretty early on, because they could justify it, recruiting, and just makes the courts look better and feel better, have that home court advantage, but then sell it to recruits, the look of the court dividers and, everything else. But, I think a turning point to your question, like as far as like gaining traction, after about a year and a half, after I decided to make it my full-time focus, we were having some success with the dividers. And to kind of go back to what you were saying, I can remember even hearing from our first one of our first sales reps in our first, Cairo Hughes, who did a really great job for us first year or two. She met with Kelly Jones, who was the men's coach at Furman at the time, and Tanner Stump, I believe. These guys aren't there any longer, obviously, but they were the first college program to end. They ultimately added them and purchased them from us. But they were doing this, shadow, like where are these things going to be, and are we going to have enough room? Just, doing some shadow ghost shots just to make sure, running back to see if they're going to be in the way. So initially, we got some of that. Man, are they going to get in the way? Are people get injured by these things? And it's really interesting to see how far that's come, because we don't hardly ever get asked that anymore. Just because people are used to, they see them on more and more courts, and it just starting to become, it's not to the point, and I think it will be, I believe it will, where it's just courts look different or almost naked if they don't have them. But you see them now, and it's not so much of an unknown, and so when people get that, they become more familiar with it, more comfortable. So there's less and less. It's more about, do they fit our courts? Are there enough room between and usually there is, more often than not, way more often than not, but it's been interesting to see how that's evolved over time, to kind of the barrier entry, that point of entry, there were some barriers there earlier that just aren't there anymore.
Well, like I go to your website and you look at them, and as I said earlier, and I don't know if we were live yet, the facility I work at kind of built with the fence what you built, but I look at your website and it just looks so much better. I'm like, I don't care. I want that. And now I don't have room because I'd have to put it out even further because of where my fence goes to. But it does. It just brings it up to a whole different spot on a professionalism. It looks like a real tournament that is at your facility. And I was thinking with Learfield there, I think they bought a different alumni. I went to TCU and they were Go Television, Go TV. I think they bought that. Could we look to a day where we could put the television in the court harbor and you could have running ads going on?
Yeah, see here, absolutely. I really think there's a lot of those. It's funny. I laugh and I almost like just kind of stop and laugh because I've had similar thoughts of that. With all the stuff that you're seeing with the live streaming, the court dividers are in a great spot to be. I know they put them on the fence and those kind of things, but just as far as lights being put up there, and so they're not just over top of you when you're, out playing, and just the right kind of lights and
absolutely
music that's coming from there, and speakers, and there's all kinds of possibilities. But I think and this is a great thing for everybody, including Court Harbor. The more presence we have and have seen over particularly the last few years, and more visibility, people are starting to think, oh yeah, we could use these at this event, or we could use them in this way, where before it was just, okay, what are those? Oh yeah, okay, they're court dividers. And I think people are starting to see how different they can be used. Our high school model with our dividers is we tell, say to the athletic director, the booster club president, look, these are a tennis court divider. That's what they're made for. That's what they need to be used for. And they can make your high school tennis facility, look that much better and feel like the home court advantage, and brand your logo and your program. But heck, use them at the concession stands on Friday nights, and at the ticket gates, and at all the other sports, and sell the advertising to, the local. And it's not just your typical cattle gates or it's bike rack. It's something different. It's so we're that's one of the things that's exciting, is that I think there's so much additional growth in those ways.
Yeah, it all stems from the aesthetics, which is great. It just looks good. How do we incorporate it into other aspects? And I think with the economics the way they are, any way you can create a little bit different revenue stream. I think everybody gets tired of selling the card or the Christmas wrapping paper. That if you can go to somebody and say, hey, we're not asking for a donation, we're asking for a sponsorship. We're going to show and the more interactive, the better. So that's exciting. That's good stuff. So, but you've taken that and you've also done some pretty high-end signs as well, and scorecards. Was those your designs, or a partnership with somebody?
Yeah. So after about a year and a half, I started looking around, and we had been around long enough to where some fairly recognizable located clubs and college programs were purchasing the court dividers. Real early on in the process, but Furman University, Duke University, West Side Tennis Club, Forest Hills. There were some right out of the gate. We were really fortunate to get some of the big guys on board. And not real long after the National Tennis Center, probably year 2 or 3. So we were having some success and building some good credibility. But after about a year and a half, I looked around, and I'm, from a business standpoint, I'm like, okay, we've got a proven product here. People believe in this product, but we're not a company, we're a product. So what else? What do we need to do? Where do we need to pivot? What's next for us? And I had a conversation with Made from UNCW. Another kind of milestone moment. I remember, to his credit, he said, Jon, there's no one out there in the space right now, in college tennis in particular, who's doing what you're doing with the dividers on the other court products. court number signs, net signs, scorekeepers, windscreens. And it was kind of a little bit of more of another light bulb moment, because I thought, well, you know, man, that's a great point. And so I took his thought and shared it with a few other college coaches. Hey, this is what I heard made. Do you agree? And I said, yeah. I mean, there could be a nice little space for you guys there. And so from that point, we added court number signs. And so we started to, and the approach was very much like it is with our court dividers, and it remains this way with all of our products. Is, you know, it's not generic, it's not vanilla. We're going to customize it. It's going to be your club logo, your school logo. We're going to help this. It's not just a sign, you know, and because there's plenty of places you can go and get the green number 1 on a white background, or, you know, black number 1 on a white background, vice versa. So we really took a customized, personalized approach, and some of the very first signs we made, and UNCW included. And we offer 3 different shapes and sizes with our court number signs. The standard, which is 12 by 14, and which is actually a little bigger than the regular standard ones you'll see on a lot of courts. And then our rectangular, and then our horizontal. But so a little bit different size, a little bigger in size, and the school or club logos, colors, and so then we just took that approach with each of our products that we've been adding in recent years, our net signs, and then our scorekeepers. Another one that there was a version, somewhat similar version of our current scorekeepers that were at UGA, but it was just the kind of the raw metal, and where we customized it black, paint them black, powder coat them, put the logos on them, colored logos. And so that's really what we're really hanging our hat on and continuing to focus on. Is we want to be that company that if you want to brand your courts, make your courts look better, look cleaner, look professional, provide that home court advantage, we'll help you do that, and it's, and so with each product we've added the court signs, the scorekeepers, the windscreens. That's the approach, we really take.
Do you work with any court makers, the guys who actually build it? Because obviously, again, we'll put the tennis coach hat on for a second. We want courts designed that require Court Harbor, because we want side-by-side courts, because it makes it easier to run junior drills, and always the subdivisions up here usually are 2 courts, and then we separate another 2 courts. So, do you have any partnerships that are helping push the model that, hey, now that this exists, we can accomplish the separation that we need to accomplish and make the facility more functional?
Yeah. So, it's good timing on that question, because we're at a point in kind of our growth and our market presence where this is a natural next phase for us. There's been a lot of individual, Craig Turnbull from our team, he's our vice president of business development, does a great job of where a lot of our focus previously was more on the clubs, the private clubs, the college teams, some of the high school teams, which it still is. But Craig's really done a great job. He's been with us almost 2 years now, in expanding our reach and focus on the ad agencies, the court construction companies, the designers of the courts, places that, where there are multiple facilities, so where there's not just that one. The one facility I hope will always be part of our focus, because I think it's needed, the customized approach, the relationships. But as we're growing in this market growth, the scale, I can see more of that, and we've started to have more of that recently, those relationships and partnering with folks.
Well, on the advertising side, I think it's a natural fit. I mean, as we run up against, there's a lot of people locally that want to get involved, but that's a limited budget. The national people are harder to reach, and you're kind of stuck in between. But you're not asking for the vault that a professional event would ask for. yet you're going to be able to, and they're going to get more reps because it's always going to be there. So, as I said, 10 years ago, I thought that was a great direction. And, as you get saturated, like you said, it's nice that they're coming to you. They have their book, and I have a tennis, how many facilities, boom, you can be a part of it. And especially, obviously, college, university settings, everybody wants to be in front of that advertiser or that demographic from early on. So they're with them for their lives.
Yeah, Bobby, I think, the live streaming too, this taking things to another level of opportunity, and just, I think the increased presence for us in the past few years with just seeing them more and more, we've got, to give you an idea of our geographic scope, our strongest states are North Carolina, which we're happy about because that's our home state. We hope that'll always be strong. But after North Carolina, it's California, Texas, and Florida and Georgia. Those are our top states. And so one of the things I really think about is how do we continue to grow those markets, products we're offering, just great customer service, great quality product, things that we're doing and already doing, but continuing to build on what we're doing, add and increase that market area, but also some areas that maybe aren't as in the Midwest, and some areas, California's strong, but there's lots of growth and potential in Colorado and some other areas. So those are just kind of where my thoughts go on some of that.
Well, Arizona is about to blow up as well. Just out of curiosity, and I know this is more for my own mental, I apologize. Just in the indoor facilities, growing up indoors, there was always those silly nets. They were ugly. You ran into them. Don't talk about being in the way. Your product alleviates the need for those nets. So it's a great thing. Have you had any success with the indoor facilities?
We really have. And I get excited talking about that because I didn't think that was even a play for us.
Yeah.
I thought that, hey, they've got the curtains. Those are just been around forever. And we started to have and we didn't rule it out. We just didn't put a ton of focus on it,
Right.
And so as some facilities and programs started to add ours that also had the indoor and outdoor, Westside Tennis Club's a good example. They use them on their indoor courts and the outdoor courts, and more of our facilities, our customers are doing that. But early on, we just didn't put a lot of focus on it. And now there is a increasing number of clubs, colleges that are using them indoors in place of the curtains. Now, they may still use the curtains just from a functional standpoint, when they're having drills or ball machine, things like that. But a lot of times they'll pull the curtains all the way back, put our dividers in, their dividers are there. And, so University of Kentucky does that, University of Tennessee, Boise State was one of our earliest customers, and that was the indoor, for their indoor courts. So we're just seeing, really a increased number. Drake's doing, Liberty University added them, a lot more indoor courts. And you don't have to worry about wind, but you still got the functionality of the ball being stopped, just like you do on the outdoor courts, and the branding aspect.
And
Bobby,
get rid of those nets.
But yeah, exactly. Bobby, forgive me interrupting. One of the things I love to do, Jon, because we're going to get your best ideas, the King of Tennis question, but we also every once in a while, Bobby will say, hey, have you talked to so-and-so? We'll try to connect people and make sure that hopefully you get some significant value out of this conversation as well. But then we also get a chance to throw those tennis coach ideas or those tennis pro ideas at you because you're the guy doing it. It's not like we're going to come out and compete with you. I go, oh, well, I'm going to go do it better. I want to help you. Bobby wants to help you. And I'm just sitting here listening to all this going, okay, well, where's the one for the traveling coach? So if you want to go into Georgia and you need me as a coach, and I need 2 of these because I got a lot of 2-court facilities. I'm just going to pretend I'm that guy for a second because I've been that guy. And I need one that can kind of fold up and go in a little bag, and I can carry 2 of them, and I can bring it onto the court with me, and it pops up and it says Shaun Boyce Tennis. Okay, I should do this better, Bobby. Sorry. Go Tennis. Making Atlanta tennis better than it already is. And I need to be able to pop that out of my trunk and stick it on a court, even if it's for a day, an hour. I'm looking at the size of these things and the cost. When does that potential happen beyond just me having my big panel van that I can pull these things out and set them up maybe a little less permanently? What does that look like for you? Or is that just my personal Atlanta tennis coach pipe dream?
Well, let me just say, Shaun, I love how you think. That's kind of how I think about those kind of different possibilities and like what's next for us. And I would say that I think there's definitely a need for that. I believe that, so heard it here first, but in the next few weeks, we're coming out with a pickleball court divider that is specifically for court, for pickleball. Different design, a little bit different look, same functionality, same brand capabilities. And that should be out in the next 3 to 4 weeks. And we're excited about that. Reason I say that, I can see a next for us, and we actually, you're welcome. I'd love for you to come to our bi-weekly staff meetings with those ideas.
Don't do that. I'll take over.
Yeah, that's all right. But it's talk about like what makes sense for us next and what's in line, what aligns with our current product line, what's functional, what's brandable, what's customized. And Craig Turnbull, give him credit. I mentioned earlier from our team has mentioned that, part of what our thinking needs to be is that portable, that guy who's showing up. And his thoughts were along the lines of pickleball, the people that are playing that just want their own. Maybe there's a facility that's shared, but they want the facility's not going to be adding anything to their knowledge, but they want to have it when they're playing. So it's coming from a player standpoint or that pickleball teaching pro or coach. But I do like the way you're thinking, and I think that could be a good possibility down the road.
Well, thanks, Bobby. I needed to jump in because I'm sitting here and my brain's running. I'm like, well, why haven't they done this then? Why haven't you done this yet? And Bobby and I understand the business side of these things. There's only so much you can do in a day. Right. And you've got to decide you got to maintain your lane. Like you said, do we just stick with this thing and stay here and do this thing? Well, you've also got pickleball paddles. You can do windscreens. You do the court. Like you guys do a lot of different stuff. And I think sometimes that's by nature of being in business long enough to say, well, if we're doing this thing, it's a natural next step to do the other thing. But I'm guessing also, do you see this, Jon, where somebody says, all right, well, I've got the court dividers and I'm doing everything, but I also need windscreens. And you're like, oh, crap, we're not really set up for that yet. But call me and like, hey, guys, quick, get set up. We need to do it. Like, because you're going to do things kind of potentially in a scenario where people are branding their courts. So you might want to come in with a full 6-court solution or a 22 rather than just the one thing that you've got, right?
Yeah, it's a really great point because our goal is to, like I said, with our continued goal to be that go-to, one-stop shop for your branded solution for courts.
There you go.
We don't want them to go anywhere else, so I'll give you an example. So, we've recently added, so we started, I mentioned the other products before, the dividers, court number signs, net signs, scorekeepers, windscreen. That's our current product line. But then, I'll give you another example is single sticks. They fit, we may not be selling a ton of them, but we don't want someone else to go somewhere else to get them, and for their sake and ours. So I feel like that'll be something we add. Another one thing is player benches and chairs, anything that can kind of be really on the court. And some of these things are purchased and needed more often than not, and more often than some others. But if it's a product that's on the court, I'd like for that to be a product of ours. As you guys know, it takes some time with the supplier side, and are we making it? And we really try to make as much of ours, which 99% of ours, 95% at least, is made by Court Harbor SC Logo, our partner company, on site or down the road, which is part of what we do with a vendor close by. But we really, that's another thing we really hang our hat on. Another reason SC Logo is a great partner, has been a great partner for us, is they're in the logo business. They do promotional items, apparel and lanyards and wrap signs and vehicle wraps and things like that. So the synergy there and the resources and everything that was already on site has made it a really good partnership for us for Court Harbor.
And I like that one-stop shop idea. Bobby, I want to hit him with King of Tennis. You got anything else? I'm sure besides the obvious 1,000 more questions, right?
I was gonna say, don't we believe in that one-stop shop idea as well?
Exactly. To get the thing. All right, here's what I'm working on. This is the court branding system, whatever it is. When you're doing those things, it's nice to have that one vendor that can come in. We talk directly a lot with Mike Imbernone, who says, hey, I can help you with a lot of these things. It's not necessarily what they do, but they can help you get a court bench. And Jon, hopefully at some point you can figure out how to get us a court bench that's a little better than the plastic one that still costs $300. I just don't get that myself. But we'll have to talk to on-court, off-court about their pricing another time. Bobby, anything else?
I'm good.
Awesome. Well, Jon, we've got, and I'll remind everybody at the end, we've got a deal that you guys are offering, which I appreciate, to our audience, which is 5% off of some specific products, I think you said, which are your court signage and your on-court custom dividers, which, Bobby, I've already been shopping. I think we need these Go Tennis dividers that we can carry with us and put on court. So Bobby and I are going to work on that, Jon, but you're also offering free shipping to our audience. And I will put all of that information in the show notes. We will make sure all of that is shared with everybody, your website, and everything everyone needs to get in touch with you, or probably Craig, is from what I'm hearing, as to where a lot of people are going to go with questions and potential buying of some really cool stuff. And the windscreens too. I can't, we underestimate that, in my opinion, of a tennis court, of having those windscreens and having a logo there, even if it's just a neighborhood. And we've got, what, 600 neighborhoods at least, with a couple of tennis courts that can put a nice neighborhood logo up there. Or if they were smart, maybe allow Go Tennis to sponsor a neighborhood, or 599 other ones. But enough of my running my mouth. Jon, our last question always ends with, if you were king of tennis, and that is of the whole world, or just tennis courts, just North Carolina, whatever it is, if you were king of tennis, any given time frame, whatever it takes, is there anything you would do or change in the tennis world?
Was this for one day, or do I get like a multi-year contract?
Whatever it takes. Whatever it takes.
Okay. I would do everything in my power to, I've got some ideas, but that might have to be a different conversation, to remove the barriers for the youth, for kids of different backgrounds, demographics. And I think a lot of times tennis, golf would be another one. I can't speak, I'm not as close to golf as I am tennis, and I don't mean so much, and I do think we should remove, or at least reduce as much as possible, the barriers of any kid, no matter their background, their mom and dad's income, having opportunity. And so I mean by, being at the local courts, being able to get instruction where, financial situation is not a obstacle, but also the tournaments. There's other travel tournaments in baseball and basketball. You hear about kids getting scholarship, so they're able to do it, because it's not cheap, as we know. But something, and maybe I'm not maybe quite close enough, maybe there is something like that, but where there's a lot more, not only there's opportunity, but then hopefully that opportunity turns into interest, and then there's ideas on the pro side, but maybe we'll have to make that another conversation too.
Oh, keep going. But we do two or three. I'm good with that. I mean, you've got an idea. Yeah. What you got?
So, and I know there's been some recent discussion on this, but I'm definitely an advocate for pro tennis to have a shorter calendar, not start in January with the Australian Open. So I would reduce the overall playing calendar to 6, maybe 8 months, where each major split apart 6 to 8 weeks, and then have it, I'm in NASCAR country, so maybe that model rubs off on me a little, but have it to where it's more like a point system, where there's more culmination excitement for the end of the season. So they're building, I know they do the, what do they call that at the very end of the year, where the top guys come.
ATP finals, yeah.
Yeah, but just have more of that culmination of pulling for someone through the season, maybe even form some teams from different major cities in the US or throughout the world. Everybody loves a good team. Put 4 or 5 players on a team, pull for them from week to week.
And Bobby, it sounds a little bit like UTS that they've got going on right now, but also I'm thinking World Team Tennis. You got some experience there, right?
Well, I'm laughing. Just it sounds like a lot of things that people have already said to us, and it's amazing.
The calendar, yeah.
If the calendar is certainly a hot button, the aspect of the team has been very popular as well. And why aren't the powers that be listening? It all, to me, it always goes back to. So it sounds like there's a leadership void in the top. Again, that's a different conversation, and we don't need to bash. But it's so true, and I love the. Said it as well as far as the way we give money to the youth programs. Instead of wasting money trying to give it to a coach and say, okay, this is your salary. You're going to bring in kids and let them play tennis and let them learn it this way. We're spending the money anyway. Let's allocate the money differently. And it probably Jon's background in college athletics and trying to raise revenue is very helpful. But I see this. The revenue model needs to change, local level, high school level, college level. It needs to change. And, hopefully it will be alive long enough to see it, but it needs to change.
I'd love to also see a system where let's say you decided whether 64 or 128 is the right draw size, where those players get in, on that, they've earned it, kind of similar to a PGA card. They've earned their spot for that year. But then you've got some of the challenger below it, so they're below that 64 or 128, and man, they're grinding away trying to get one of those top 64 spots. And then if you lose first round, maybe you got to play some of those guys, that have worked their way up to that. Have a little bit more competitiveness at those levels too.
That was another thing that just came up. So, Jon, you're right on, and I love the NASCAR analogy. I always say that tennis needs to go hire the NASCAR marketing guy or the WWE, because if you can sell something where everybody makes a left turn or something that the outcome is predetermined and you're still selling out arenas, you're doing a pretty good job promoting what you're doing. And that was one of my first experiences in sports was at Talladega when I was in graduate school. And I was so impressed with the fan interaction. And we did a survey for Hershey. And, I hate to say the demographic of the crowd might have been what I expected, but everybody knew who their driver was. And to the point, everybody knew every sponsor of their driver. And were they more likely to purchase because they were a sponsor of their driver? Absolutely. The brand loyalty was incredible. Tennis, I've always said, spends far too much time selling a player, not enough time selling the game. So when we have a great player, we have a renaissance in tennis. But if we sold the game, like with golf, where golf has always been sold, then you get a Tiger, it goes to a whole nother level. Tennis has always waited around it. And now we're waiting for the next great American. And it's a global game. It's crazy. We need to, again, change. I love the team ideas. I love the PGA card analogies, all that is all come up. So again, hopefully somebody's listening to us.
Well, Jon,
in between each court, there'll be a court harbor. So
there you go. So that's
right. We'll be happy to provide the signage and other court product.
Exactly. I'm sure
exactly. Exactly. So we got this thing wired.
And Jon, Bobby got you off the hook because I was going to push back. We often get the King of Tennis question that comes in. I'd like to make it more accessible for her. I'd like to make it more affordable. There's always these ideas, but then I'm going to push back and I'm going to say, yeah, but Jon, how are you going to do that? Because everybody's, well, if I'm king, I'd snap my fingers and say, it's all now affordable. Well, okay, you just put a lot of tennis pros in the poorhouse, and that's going to be a dangerous thing. But Bobby kind of saved you today, because I think his idea, which I've always appreciated, is if the USTA actually spent the money well, again, from our point of view, maybe it's not a leadership problem, Bobby. Maybe there are things we don't actually understand going on. Like when you become president of the United States, you learn all the things that you can't actually do during your campaign that you said you were going to do. But Jon, the opportunity side, I like it a lot. And Bobby throws out the idea and say, okay, how would Bobby do it? I get it. Next time, Jon, I'm going to push and I'm going to say, how are you going to help with those opportunities? Because those are the real things I think that can help people, that can get those kids playing. And that's why I love the King of Tennis question, because here's what I would love to do. The question is then, is it actually possible, or am I just doing a pipe dream again?
Yeah. So I love this discussion. And I think the quick answer that we need to drill down into next time is, of course, it's relationships. It's getting I know this is an overused phrase, but getting the right people in the room, having these hard, frank discussions. It doesn't seem to me, and I don't know the ins and outs of the governing body's revenue and bottom dollar, but it doesn't seem like lack of money is the issue. So it's more of an allocation issue, and so where are we spending these dollars that's really not growing the game and really making a difference and getting a racket in people's hands?